Hello, everyone. This is Shweta Ragmi coming live from Canada. Today is all about interview model that I'm going to share you, CAR model, C-A-R. I went live and gave you the CARL model, which is C-A-R-L. And if you want to know more about the C-A-R-L model, it's on my YouTube channel. This is being streamed all over right now. I am on an audio event as well where people are listening to me. I'm going to screen share, and we're going to do the Q&A right after this live as well. And if you want to join me in an audio event where you can ask me questions, you can be on stage. And if you're a hiring manager, recruiter, feel free to hop in and we can talk about it a little bit later once I'm wrapping up this live. Also, this has been screened on YouTube. Now, you know what? I was looking at the survey. There was a survey being done, and 93% of the people, they go through the interview anxiety. And for those people who are neurodiverse and they're dealing with the anxiety, it's even more in that, right? So I'm going to go through the frame that I have learned myself. And who am I to talk about this? First, let's talk about it. I was a hiring manager in the hiring world, and I've interviewed all sort of people. And then I became a job seeker after I got laid off. And I thought that, you know what, interview is like easy peasy for me because I've done so much already. But I did have challenge. So I definitely had to prepare the model, and I walked away with the CAR model, and that really worked for me. That also works for my client as well. So I'm going to go through the strategy. I'm going to give you one example. And disclaimer, before I even begin, one size does not fit all. The model is there for you, but you still have to go and look at the job descriptions, the title you're targeting, the industries, and you still have to know the hiring manager's pain. Now, I want to see in the comment sections, let me know if I'm sounding all right. So I need to dive in right away right now, okay? So I'm going to see on comments right here. And I'm also going to share the screen as well where people are listening on my audio live as well. Okay, give me emojis, heart emojis on my LinkedIn live, whoever's watching me right now, that everything is good, you can hear me, everything is perfect, so I can go and talk about this. All right, so there are people listening on my audio event as well. I'm going to go and share my screen as well a little bit later. Okay, first of all, thank you so much for joining me. So I'm going to go, and this is what I'm talking about. What exactly is a CAR technique? Now, there's a different model out there. There's a STAR technique, there's a SOAR technique, there's a SAR technique, right? And do what works for you. But again, the framework would be kind of like similar. So CAR model is something that sometimes you could go with the challenges. So where the question could be something like, tell me about the time when you dealt with certain challenges, then you come up with the challenges. Or there would be the questions like, there's no challenges, but they want to know, tell me about the time when you did this. So no challenges, but then give them a context, right? What is the A in that model? Action is really important. So the hiring manager are asking these questions. Why? First of all, why as a hiring manager, we are asking those questions. We are asking those questions to understand how you dealt the situation in the past. And the study says that the past behavior predicts the future. And that's the reason that majority of the companies, they are asking these questions. I've had a couple of clients in Amazon, and they actually follow the leadership principles. So anytime when you work with the top employers, when you're actually going for interview within the top employer sections, chances are they already have a built-in internal process, and they are leading the interviews based on their vision, mission, and values. And that's the area that you really need to go and research. And some companies like Amazon, they're really clear on what they want. They will actually give you heads up as well. Okay, we're going to look into the leadership principle, and these are the principle, right? And they have a principle, and then you focus everything around that. Even the CAR model would be that. So my clients have made it to these companies by using the similar strategies. And again, one size does not fit all. It all depends on the role. All right. Oh my God. I'm going to have water. All right. So before I go about how you should go communicate during interview, I want to ask you something. Put it on like my chat there on LinkedIn Live. Tell me if you've heard about this model, CAR model, you've applied it. Say, yes, I've applied the CAR model. I love it. Or, you know what? I have no clue. I just hate it. All right. I'm going to tell you the strategy. This could happen when you go on interview. It's live, right? When you go on interview, it's going to happen that you're probably, you need some water or something like that. And there's a strategy. I always carried the water bottle with me when I went to the interview. I'm going to give you the bonus tip. I also carry the notebook with me as well. And there's a reason I carry the water bottle. If I'm losing my train of thought, if I'm stuck somewhere, then I'm like gathering my thought just by doing this. Oh, where was I? There you go. That's the hack that I've applied for myself. If I got stuck on the interview and then I would say, oh, I just lost my train of thought. Where was I? I'm sipping the water and then thinking it through as well. That's a hack you could do. That actually happened to me live and I wanted to showcase it. This is how I would handle it. Even if you're nervous, if you have anxiety, bring something with you so you can take a sip of water and start thinking, okay, instead of just saying, I don't know. All right, so that's the first strategy, okay? And then the different strategy, I put it in there as well as a notebook. Some people, what they do is they would ask you a couple of questions in one questions. And some of the hiring managers are not trained, especially in the newer company or new hiring managers. They don't know how to do the interview. And they will ask you questions on one set of questions, which is like, oh my God, so many questions and you will lose it. So I would have a notebook, obviously, and then I would Scrabble it. So that way I'm not going to ask them later on. Well, what did you ask the second part was? And I always did it. That worked the wonder for me. Now, this is not about some companies might not want you to bring a notebook, just follow the process, but I always did it. And I actually asked them, can I take out my notebook? And that worked the wonder for me. That worked for me. All right, let's go. So I've talked to you about it. And one thing you might not know, in a lot of companies, what's happening is with the companies that I've worked in the past, these are top employers. We had a system in place. We had the framework in place. We had HR in place, and we would score you, and then we'll calibrate the scores for you because there are so many people who are interviewing it. It needs to be fair. That's why you need to meet the matrix, right? So let's say when I'm asking you the question and I'm telling you, you know what, I want you to explain the situations, what you did, and then I want you to come up with a result as well. I'm giving you that lead already. So if you're not getting it here, that means you've lost me, okay? So I'm going to write it. And there's a section for me, the C. Okay, what was the contest, right? I'm going to write it as you're talking. That's why interviewers are taking a note as well. And the notes are for compliance piece as well, just in case if you don't meet the requirement, if you want to come back and ask us, and if you feel like there's a biases or discriminations, there's a note and we are protected as well. And we need to put it in the system as well, right? That's a reason that we are literally following the framework. So asking the same type of questions to everybody. So everyone is tested with the same way, okay? That's why the framework is very important to follow from the employer's point of view, and hiring managers stick to the framework to avoid the biases and discriminations. All right. So I'm going to ask you CAR. So I'm going to ask you the questions, whatever question would be, and then you need to come up with the context, what you did, and the result as well. And let's say anytime I'm one of the manager that if you miss the result, and I would say, so what happened after that? What happened after that? That means on that card, you're missing the result. So take that clue, right? Not everyone does it. Not everyone does it. But I want to make sure that I get more out of it when I'm doing the interview, because you're not familiar with the CAR model. So that's why you need to follow the model and you need to practice this. Okay, I'm going to bring you the question. So choose the example. That's really important. First of all, what's the right model? What's the right example for you? That's a really, really good area to look into it, right? One example might apply for one job that you apply for, and it might not apply for the next job you're applying for. And if you've seen it in the market, even if you're targeting one title, if you've seen the job description, these are not the same job descriptions, right? The pain that you're dealing here, you might not be dealing with it in the different role and industry and the role, everything, it's different. So this is where the information interview comes in. And then this is where you need to come up with the right example. And I've dropped the ball. I'll give you the one example. So after I got laid off, I was a hiring manager. I got laid off. And then I was targeting all sort of industry, and one industry I targeted, I did not know they were unionized. And when they asked me the questions, I said, you know what, there's the particular questions, and I was explaining the situational questions, and all of a sudden they flipped the questions with, what would you do? That's not the situation question anymore. And I was stuck. I was like, oh my God, what would you do now? Right? So they asked me questions and I said, I would do this, this, this. And then the hiring manager director looked at the other manager and said, are we allowed to do it here? And then they said, it's unionized role and you can't do it here. So my answer was, you know what, I would start taking calls if it's really busy as a manager. Because where I came from on the hiring world and the corporate world was all hands on deck when it was busy. Didn't matter if you're a manager, director, senior manager, you're supposed to sit down and take a call, right? It was normal. But in the unionized role, it was not normal, right? And the feedback came up later on. I reached out for feedback and he did actually pointed that to me. You know what, unionized works differently, right? So I was probably not the right fit. I didn't get the job, but he mentored me. I got the feedback, and that was a lesson learned for me. I should have done more homework if I wanted to go from one industry to the other one. That was not the good example. Okay. So even we do the interview, but sometimes we do the lesson learned, right? Questions. There are a couple of questions on a car model. So there's a technical questions for technical people, and there are non-technical where people are judging you based on the soft skills and based on how you say things. So for technical people, we're talking about, this is where a lot of people, I think, miss the idea of talking about the tools and softwares. And I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about. When someone is asking about tell me about the time when you use this tool. Tell me about the time when you use this trend. So if you look at the question right there, that's like technical mixed with situational, right? So now what I want to hear from the hiring manager is like, what are the tools you're using it that, you know what, you have expertise in? And are we looking for that kind of tool? Is that something that you're an expert in, right? Your strategy should be dropping the lingo that they're using. The tools. Your strategy should be, you should have already done the homework on the information interview with the people, like what are the tools they're using it? What do you know, right? What can you bring in, right? So then if you don't know, then you got to ask as well, right? So this is the strategy I teach my client in interview coaching as well. So that's why one size does not fit all. You might be talking about one tool that they don't actually use it and it's obsolete or something. This is why you need to do the research on it, okay? So for example, when they're asking you, tell me about the time when when you did some report or matrix or like you brought some reporting tools together and what did you do, right? So what action did you take to complete the task and what tools and sources you used? As a hiring manager, if I'm hiring someone, I want to hire someone who is going to be using the tool that I have it here. That's something that I want to hear, right? And this is where people go wrong. So again, what I'm looking for now on the interview framework, what happens is when hiring managers are asking those questions, there's a blurb right there. This is actually taken from the actual interview that's going on in the market used by the top employer. I have an interview guide together. So what I'm looking for is that particular, if you read my screen, ability to interpret informations, to make business decisions and recommendations, uses logical reasoning. So it's giving me the pointer. So I'm looking at it and I'm going back to my framework, seeing like, am I understanding this correctly, right? So I'm looking for informations and I'm trying to evaluate you based on that. That's a framework I'm going through, right? So I'm going to give you an example now. All right. So the contest. So if I were you, I'm going back to, let's say, if I were to go back to the sector that I was expert in. So my context would be when banks were being monitored for unethical sales and aggressive target, I was asked to look into how we could integrate the system in place to mitigate the risk for unethical sales. That's my context, the situation, right? So then what did I do? The action, we had outdated process. Not that we didn't have a process, but it was really outdated, right? And then I held a meeting with my team and I asked to audit sales call through Avaya and Genesis system. See what I'm doing here? I'm using the tools that I know that they're using it too. So that way I'm dropping the word right there in hiring manager's head, having them at hello. Oh, okay, Avaya. Oh, she uses that too, right? I'm doing that on purpose. This is what the technical tool comes in. And then I held focus group with agents and leaders to go over example of unethical sales. What I'm telling them is, do I collaborate? Right? Before I actually put the proposal together, do I go and work with the people, stakeholders? And I'm giving them a clue. I do that, right? I don't just come up with a proposal without talking to the people. So then I said, I realized the sales had gray areas. I proposed a list of items that would be considered unethical. And that's after a focus group and meeting. And then we train everyone and introduce performance management guidelines by partnering with HR. So I'm partnering it because anything when there's new things are going on, there's a change resistance. People need to understand. People need to be, first of all, be aware of it. Was the unethical sales happening? And then train them. And like, we're going to collaborate. What if they go with that process? What's the next step as a management, as a business, right? So I'm partnering, I'm soliciting the feedback and everything before I am starting to propose the idea. So then we introduced, then again, the result now, like, pretty much would be, we introduced a new quality process, call with zero, any call that actually came, we audited, and that came with the unethical sales that we actually saw, okay, there was something happening. Then the call automatically resulted to zero. And then leaders had to audit calls as well monthly. We made sure that leaders had to audit the calls for their team as well for unethical sales, and then issue the final warning that would be disciplinary actions up to the termination as well. That was a part of me working in the performance management with the HR, right? And then document as well. And if unethical sales spotted, then the bonus and shift would have been impacted for the agent as well, right? So that's the thing that we work together. And then the result, what happened after that, right? After we did all those, what was the result of it? We introduced a preventative control in place. Agents were clear and regularly trained. There was a training gap, right? If people don't know how unethical sales happen, then who are you to actually go and hold them accountable? Communication is the key first before you start holding them accountable. Are they clear on it, right? Training. So we focused on that. And then it became also as a part of onboarding as well. So we started from onboarding process. So the habit happens from day one, right? If they know what to do, then it's going to be easy for leaders to coach. And then we introduced a new disciplinary warning and avoided reputational risks for the bank, right? So now, sometimes the result would be some with the data, sometimes it would be quality. On this one is quality aspect to it, right? There's a quantitative method as well. So if you want to, you can always say, if you really know, the cost of training people, like we introduced the model, we automated it, and by doing that we saved 30% in the recruitment and training cost, right? So that's the result that you can put it out there as well if you know the data and everything as well. So this is a high level example for you. Now, the quick question for you. Now, a lot of people stop right there. Now, how do you make the interview conversational, right? And I have the whole strategy and conversation. Go on to my blog, teachanddo.com. There are a bunch of examples. There are videos as well on teachanddo.com under blog section, free resources. You can go there and see the examples and also see the video. How do you make the interview conversational? And how do you make it? Now, this is what I would do. I would go one step. I'm not going to sit there and be ready for another questions now. Okay, I'm done. Like next, right? I'm not going to be order taker. No, that's not me. I want to engage because the interview is something that you want to go out there and find out if you're the right fit, if they're the right fit, right? It's a two-way street. Don't be order taker. Now, this is exactly the strategy you're going to put it through. Maybe you knew what kind of tools they used. Okay, perfect. You can talk about, oh, I understand that you use this tool, and tell me, how do you monitor calls, right? But then it has to be something within your industry, the area that you're applying for, okay? Don't just go with the random questions. It has to make sense. On this case, I would say, what process do you have for unethical sales? Because I don't know the process. That's the inside information, right? And I'm going to also ask, like, how do you forecast the target so that it is not aggressive? Because unethical sales, in my opinion, happens when you actually make it very aggressive targets. And that's why banks are being monitored right now for being aggressive, and agents are quitting. There's a mental health. There's so many things, and people are speaking up right now, even banks and sales industry, retail industry, right? They're saying, no, like, you know what? I'm doing this because you're forcing me to do it. So I'm understanding their model. How do they coach people? What are the systems in place, right? And if I don't want to work with the people who are really aggressive, they believe in hustle culture. They're like, we want you to do anything after hours. You know what? This is what our agent does. This is how the above and beyond is in our culture. Then if I don't want to be doing that, right, I'm not going to be choosing them when the offer comes in, or doesn't matter to me, right? So this is why you need to ask the right questions to evaluate if they're the right people to work, or if that's the hiring manager that you want to work with in the future. Okay. And which system they use for call monitoring, right? You got to understand it, right? What if you don't know the system? What are the training in place? Do you have to go and figure it out, or there's someone teaching you, right? These are the questions you should be asking to move on from interview questions now to the conversation as well. Hopefully that makes sense. So non-technical questions here, occasionally, that's a question, it's not technical. So that's one of the questions. Occasionally, other people's work priorities conflict with ours. Tell me about the time when this happened to you. What did you do? I have a whole framework on the conflict on these questions. Go on my YouTube and watch it. It's there. How do you handle those kind of questions? And that's actually tied up with the Carl model. See, the conflict happens, right? There's nothing wrong with it. How do you address the conflict, right? Are you open to hearing? And then what do you learn from each conflict? And you bring an example. Don't sit there and say, well, I never have a conflict. That's not good either, right? We are going to have a conflict. People management part is really hard. Or you're going to have a conflict with the manager as well, right? So you got to bring the right example. But it's always about, do you collaborate? Do you ask questions? Do you invite people? Do you listen to the people? So my theory is seek to understand before being understood, right? And then I have a matrix called metrics. You can go and see it on YouTube. I'm not going to go into that one. So this is more kind of like soft skill question for you. Even that you can, if you're a technical person, if you want to framework differently, you can use the tools that used it to manage those conflicts as well. And that's a strategy I teach in my interview coaching. So what they're looking for as per framework on those is, do you let's say building working relationships, soft skills, seek opportunities, develop others and own ideas, right? These are the things hiring managers are looking for. And again, soft skills are so hard to measure it, but the right example would actually put hiring managers on the perspective, okay, you know what, if that happens, I know this is the right person. I really want that person in my team, right? This is where you have hiring managers at hello. And I teach on my program. If you are struggling, I'm going to tell you this. If you have had multiple interviews and you're not even converting, and you've had you're not getting feedback, sometimes no feedback is a feedback that you're struggling. This is where I can help you, and we can partner and see if I can help you bounce back. I've helped thousands of people land the dream job, newcomers, everyone, people who are laid off, people who wanted to switch, right? So I can help you. Now I'm going to share my screen on the audio. Anyone who wants to join me in audio event, come and ask me in audio event. I'm going to share my screen. And then I'm going to take questions in audio. So anyone, I know that people have dropped here. Raise your hand if you have any questions about the interview in particular. I'm going to bring you on audio event. Share my screen. Let me see here. And you would be on my LinkedIn Live as well. So people, if you want to be asking questions, come to my audio event live. You can see yourself. All right. So audio event people, I am showing you on a screen. So I'm going to bring you any questions you have about the interview questions. Let me know. Before I do that though, I'm going to see if there's any questions on my LinkedIn Live or YouTube as well. Let me see here. All right. So there's no questions. I'm just looking at the questions here, if there's anything. Dan, I don't know what that's. Honest recruiter shows me not love for 90 seconds. Okay. All right. I'm going to bring people on the stage. If you have any questions, ask me. Okay. You're on the stage. Have questions, ask me. Capped? Do you have any questions about the interview?
So, hi.
Hi, how are you? Where are you joining me from?
I am joining from Gurgaon in India.
Perfect. So what brings you here today?
So it's an interesting model we talked about. I am also a headhunter, so I just wanted to share my perspectives.
Oh, please go through. With you. Absolutely. Go ahead.
And specifically because I have experience in terms of in the past hiring in Canada, and currently also I am doing a mid-senior level hiring as well as director sales for Canada.
Okay. So what do you look for when you're doing the phone screening? Can you tell our people what are the questions that you normally ask as a headhunter?
Okay, so the tool which I generally use is very popular amongst the HR professionals, which is called a behavioral event interview, BEI. It basically talks about the candidate has to share examples and real examples in terms of substantiating and quantifying what they claim as their success. So it's easy to write something on a CV which looks very impressive, but when you dig deeper and probe in terms of what exactly the person did to achieve or arrive at the outcome, that those steps which are when he or she starts elaborating, that itself opens up multiple communication forums or points where you can actually probe in terms of whether it was meticulous, whether it was diligent, whether it was commitment at all levels, or whether it is superficial and only claiming glory for end result.
That's perfect. So what is do you have any example do you have any example of something that you feel like it's really good example, you love it? Can you describe that in less than 1 minute?
So let's say, for example, the current position which I'm hiring for, sales director. So the person can, in the CV, can claim, I enhance sales by, let's say, 20% year on year. Very good.
Yeah.
Now, when in a behavioral event interview, I will ask questions in terms of what exactly you did, what was your role, what was the situation, and how you enhanced the distribution system. What all steps did you take to arrive at this end result of 20% growth year on year? And then if he starts talking about the brass tracks, which is basically the channels which he developed, the distribution system which he developed, and what all role each channel had in terms of overall contribution, if he or she is able to quantify those, then you get to understand that, okay, he or she was actually involved and impacted the growth in terms of sales and revenues. If the person starts giving, answers which are not actually making sense, and obviously it cannot lead to such kind of growth, because 20% year on year is a significant growth, where anything in single digit or just about 10% is also commendable in today's times. So this is just one example. So each functional accomplishment can be probed in the similar lines. And only thing is, when you adopt a technique like a BEI, you have to prepare yourself for each candidate, go through the CV well in advance, which generally, because of our busy and committed time frames, we just skim through CV and get into interview.
Okay.
It will not work.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kat. So Subendu. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your insights. I'm going to bring a couple of people on the stage as well, and I'm going to move you back to the listening. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are watching me on LinkedIn Live right now or YouTube right now live, you can come in and join my audio events and ask me questions here. I'm going to bring you here as well, screen share so people can hear you as well, your questions. If you have any insights, this is a time for you to shine with your expertise. I'm going to give you that moment. So come in, hop in my audio event, and then come in, share your strategies. All right, so I'm going to bring the next person here. And it has to be the interview questions. Ask me interview questions. Indika, you are next. And I'm going to give 2 minutes, and then I'm going to sign off from here. Indika, what questions do you have for me? Or, do you want to share something that worked for you? You're on a mute, so you have to unmute yourself. You can go at the bottom and unmute it, or you might have to come back and give permission to yourself. In the interest of time, it's not coming up. I'm going to move you back. All right, stay with the interview questions, guys. When you come up on the stage, ask me questions about the interview. Happy? You're next. You're muted. And you're muted. So that means probably you need to get permission. Come back. In the interest of time, I'd like to move on. Himanshu? Okay, I'm not going to take any questions anymore. I'm going to wrap this up. Himanshu, what do you have for me? Do you have any questions about the job interview? I can hear you. What question do you have?
Okay.
Himanshu,
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Can you hear me? I think
Yes.
the audio is running a bit behind.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. What question do you have?
Audio is running. Okay. Yes, I think I completely agree with Shubhendu's behavioral oriented interviewing style. Yeah, so I've been, let me introduce myself. I'm the digital marketer, like window, searching for jobs, and I have.
I'm losing you. I'm losing you. I'm going to move back to listening. I'm sorry about that. Just want to make sure that it's time sensitive. I wanted to respect everyone's time. Now, thank you so much for joining everybody. So what I'm going to do is not share now. All right. So let's go through this. Again, what we went through today was all about the CAR technique, which is context, challenge, action, and result. And one size does not fit all. This is why you need to know the job descriptions. You need to find out the pain. Your pain from the last job might not be the pain that, the hiring managers are looking on the next job. And I teach all of that, how to spot the pain from the job descriptions and how to ask the right questions to find out the pain if you're not having any clue about it, right? Last thing you want to do is shoot yourself in the dark. The next thing is there are free common interview questions. I have it on the blog as well. You can download it. Go ahead and download it. There are like a lot of strategies given by hiring manager themselves. So go and download. These are all yours. And subscribe to my YouTube channel as well if you want to see me. Next week, I'm coming up with a guest, Tiffany. And we're going to go through the promotion strategy. This is going to be streamed exactly the way. How do you get promoted quickly? I got 9 promotions within 12 years, and I know the strategy that I worked through in my direct reports. How did I promote them as well? And Tiffany was a hiring manager as well, and she's going to talk about promotion as well. How do you get promotions quickly? What are the strategies she uses on herself and her clients too? We're going to go through that, and it's going to be audio event first. This is exactly what's going to be. You can hop in audio, ask us questions, and then we're going to be streaming in live as well. Any questions you have about the job search, if you're a newcomer in Canada, you're laid off recently, I've been there. I've walked a mile in your shoes. I can help you bounce back. Please reach out. There's the appointment calendar. I'm expecting, a new clients. Newcomers coming into the Canada. There are a lot of you, but then don't wait until you come here. Your strategy starts from your home country because it's going to be stressful when you land in new country and start looking for a job. Your strategy should start from there a couple of months before. Don't wait until it's too late. Okay. Other than that, if you have any questions, any feedback for me, any topics that you want me to proceed on in future, feel free to reach out and share this video, YouTube as well, to everybody who are struggling with the job interview. I'm on a TikTok as well, by the way. I go there. I'm going to probably go live on TikTok soon as well. Go and find me on TikTok and we can chat there as well today. All right. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and have yourself a fantastic long weekend if you're in US. Take care. Bye.